Every parent dreams of giving their child the best, a good education, discipline, a safe future. But sometimes, the walls we trust to protect them hide secrets darker than the night itself. Before you decide where your daughter will learn, hear this tale, because not every convent is built for prayer. Some are built for something else. Jane sat quietly on the couch as her parents went on and on about the importance of good morals and discipline. Her father, strict as always, repeated the same line he had told her 100 times. A convent school is the best place to raise a girl right. Her mother nodded in agreement, adding that nothing mattered more than her daughter growing up pure and respectful. Jane wanted to protest, but she knew it was useless. In her parents' house, there was no room for arguing. She had always been the type who loved freedom, reading her novels late into the night, walking around the compound with her cousins, laughing loud at silly jokes. The thought of being locked up in a convent, with its endless rules and silent corridors, filled her with dread. Still, she said nothing. 2 weeks later, the decision became reality. Her bags were packed, her uniform folded neatly inside, and the family car rolled toward the convent school. Jane leaned against the window, watching the scenery fly past. Every mile felt like a step further away from the life she knew. When they finally arrived, evening shadows had already stretched across the school grounds. The tall, grey buildings loomed over her, cold and unwelcoming. Her parents handed her over to Sister Angelina, a stern-looking nun who smiled like she had something up her sleeve. Jane clutched her bag tighter. Her parents waved goodbye to her, their voices full of assurance. Jane stood frozen, staring at the convent gates as they closed behind her. Jane followed Sister Angelina across the courtyard, her shoes making a soft crunch on the gravel. The convent stood tall and quiet, its walls painted a dull cream that had lightened up with time. On the far side, she noticed a chapel with a cross at the top, the old wooden doors shut tightly. The building looked strange in the dim light of evening, almost as if it was watching her. Jane shivered and quickly looked away. She only thought, maybe, I felt unsafe because I never wanted to attend a convent school. This will be your new home, Sister Angelina said firmly, her long rosary swaying as she walked. Jane forced a smile and nodded, though her chest felt tight. Every corner they passed seemed too silent, too empty, as though the place held its breath. She wondered if it was just her mind playing tricks on her. Sister Angelina stopped in front of a dormitory door and pushed it open. Inside, 2 girls were arranging their beds. They both looked up, smiling warmly. "This is Jane," Sister Angelina announced, before leaving without another word. The taller of the girls stepped forward. "Hi, I'm Cassie," she said with a cheerful grin. The other, smaller girl waved shyly. "I'm Precious." "Welcome." Jane relaxed a little. She introduced herself, and seeing the 3 of them were talking softly, Cassie asked about her family, and Precious showed her where she could place her belongings. Together, they helped her arrange her bed near the window. When Jane finally sat down, the rain had started falling outside, pattering gently against the glass. She pulled out a novel, hoping to distract herself, but her eyes kept drifting toward the window as she kept hearing creepy sounds. Something about the convent felt different, too heavy, too cold. As thunder rumbled in the distance, Jane told herself it was only her imagination. The rain began softly at first, tapping gently against the old glass windows of the dormitory. Jane lay on her bed, clutching her little novel, trying to distract herself from the uneasiness she felt since arriving. The dim lantern light in the corner of the room flickered now and then, making the shadows dance across the cracked walls. Cassie and Precious were already fast asleep, their soft breathing the only sound mixing with the rain. Jane sat up, her back against the cold iron frame of the bed, and tried to lose herself in her story. But her eyes kept wandering to the window. Something about the night felt heavier than usual, like the silence outside was holding its breath. Curiosity got the best of her. She stood, went over the window and pulled the thin curtain aside, and peered out into the darkness. For a while, She saw nothing but the wet ground glistening under the faint moonlight. Then her heart skipped. A shadowy figure, covered in what looked like a long cloak, moved slowly across the yard. It wasn't rushing to escape the rain. It walked steadily, as though the drops didn't bother it. Jane's eyes followed it, and her stomach dropped when she realized it was heading toward the chapel. She wondered why someone would be outside by this time of the night and under the rain. The figure stopped suddenly, as if sensing her gaze. Slowly, it turned its head upward. Even from a distance, Jane felt its eyes lock onto hers. Cold rushed through her veins. She gasped, stumbled back, and let the curtain fall shut. Her hands shook as she crawled back under the blanket, pulling it up to her chin. She tried to steady her breath, whispering to herself that it was just her imagination. But no matter how much she tried, she couldn't shake the feeling. Someone had seen her. Forcing her eyes shut, Jane begged sleep to come. Morning came with the sharp sound of the convent bell ringing through the compound. Jane sat up quickly, rubbing her eyes, still haunted by the image from last night. She wanted to dismiss it as her imagination, but the uneasiness in her chest refused to fade. The girls hurried out of their dorms for morning prayers, and Jane followed, clutching her rosary. The chapel was dimly lit, its tall windows letting in streams of sunlight that painted the wooden pews in soft colors. Nuns in black habits moved silently, like shadows, their faces calm but unreadable. After prayers, Jane and the other new students were gathered in the main hall for orientation. Sister Rebecca, a tall, strict-looking nun with sharp eyes, explained the rules: silence in the dormitories, obedience without question, and prayer before every meal. Then Sister Agatha, round and gentle, welcomed them warmly, speaking softly about kindness and discipline. Finally, the whole grew silent as Her Grace, Mother Rose, walked in. She was older than the rest, with piercing eyes that seemed to look through everyone. Her presence filled the room. She spoke slowly, her voice low but commanding. This convent is not just a school, it is a place of sanctification. Here, you will learn obedience, purity, and devotion. Nothing matters outside these walls. Later, all the students were led into the sanctuary for a ceremony. They lit candles while the nuns sang hymns in Latin. Jane held her candle nervously, her hands trembling. At one point, the lights flickered, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw a shadow move behind the altar. By evening, she was exhausted. The routine was strict: general morning prayers, as early as 5 a.m., morning classes from 8 o'clock a.m. till 12 p.m. 1 p.m. they all gather for their Angelus prayers. By 2 p.m. their afternoon classes. Till 4 p.m. they take a rest. And 8 p.m. starts their social gathering with Sister Agatha, where she teaches them the ways of the convent and other things, which takes an hour and 30 minutes. It was only done 2 times every week, on Tuesdays and Fridays. Everything felt too rigid, too controlled. Jane lay on her bed that night, staring at the ceiling. The convent was full of rules and rituals, yet beneath it all, she sensed something hidden, something the nuns were not saying, and that shadow behind the altar, had anyone else seen it? Or am I just imagining things after the stories I have heard about creepy castles or convents? The first week passed quickly. Jane found herself adjusting to convent life better than she thought she would. Cassie, with her bright laughter, always knew how to make her smile, while Precious was calmer, the kind of friend who listened more than she spoke. The 3 of them began to share meals together, walk to class side by side, and even whisper little jokes during study hours when the nuns weren't watching. Jane started to enjoy the rhythm of life in the convent. The morning bells no longer startled her. She sang along during morning prayers, worked hard in her classes, and even learned how to bake bread in the convent's kitchen with the other girls. Sometimes at night, she and her roommates would sit on the edge of their beds, talking about their families, their dreams, and how different life outside the convent felt. For a while, Jane almost believed she could be happy here, but small. But as time went, things began to creep in. Little things that made her uneasy. One evening, She noticed she was being followed. She couldn't make sense of it. She thought she heard another footsteps again, following the feelings down the corridor, but when she turned, the hall was empty. Then there was the matter of the chapel. Every night, its old wooden doors seemed to creak open, and a shadowy figure went in, even though Sister Rebecca always insisted they were locked after evening prayers. Jane tried to ignore these things, but in the quiet of the night, when the convent halls grew too still, she couldn't shake the feeling that the strange figure she saw on her first night wasn't just a trick of her imagination. Something was stirring in this place, something that watched when no one else was looking, and deep down, she feared it was waiting for something. The evening bell rang softly, calling all students to the hall for what they thought would be the usual gathering. Jane walked alongside Cassie and Precious, still laughing at a small joke they had shared on the way. But the moment they stepped into the dimly lit hall, the mood shifted. Candles lined the walls, and the scent of incense filled the air. At the center stood Sister Agatha, her eyes fixed on the students with an intensity that made Jane's skin prickle. "Tonight," Sister Agatha began, her voice calm but commanding, of purpose, of hope for the lost. Her words echoed across the room, almost like a chant. The students shifted uneasily, some folding their hands tightly. Jane glanced at Cassie, who was leaning forward, completely absorbed. Precious, on the other hand, fidgeted with her rosary beads, her lips pressed into a thin line. Sister Agatha continued, "This convent is more than a school. It is a place where lost souls can find light, where you can be reborn into something greater, but only if you are willing to let go of fear, doubt, and selfish desires." The hall went silent. Jane felt her heartbeat quicken. Something about the way Sister Agatha stared at them, almost as if she could see through their skin, made her uncomfortable. Then came the invitation. "Anyone who feels called," Sister Agatha said, slowly, "may meet me afterward. There are deeper truths to share, truths not spoken in the daylight." A chill ran down Jane's spine. She turned to Cassie, whispering, "Don't even think about it." But Cassie's eyes gleamed with curiosity. "What if it's something important?" she whispered back. Jane swallowed hard, unease tightening in her chest. Something told her that nothing good would come from staying after. Yet, as the gathering ended, she noticed a few girls lingering at the edges, Cassie among them. Jane hesitated at the doorway, torn between dragging her friend out or leaving her to find out the truth on her own. And that night, as the candles flickered low, the chapel doors closed again. Jane lay on her narrow bed, staring at the wooden ceiling beams above. The words of Sister Agatha still echoed in her mind. Belonging, purpose, hope for the lost. They sounded kind on the surface, but something about the way Sister Agatha spoke, her eyes almost glowing in the candlelight, unsettled her. During afternoon break the next day, she sat with Cassie beneath the neem tree in the courtyard during their break time. "Cassie, don't you think Sister Agatha's words were, somehow, strange?" she asked carefully. Cassie hugged her books close to her chest. "Strange? No, Jane. I found them comforting. She makes you feel like you're part of something bigger, don't you think?" Jane frowned. "Or like she wants to control us?" Cassie rolled her eyes. "You worry too much. Not everything is dark or dangerous. Maybe Sister Agatha is just trying to guide us." Then she smiled softly, as though ending the discussion. But Jane couldn't let it go. All through evening prayers, her thoughts drifted. The choir's voices rose in harmony, candles flickered in their holders, yet her heart beat restlessly. That night, long after lights out, she lay awake listening to the soft breathing of her roommates. The silence was heavy, broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl outside. She shifted under her blanket, trying to calm her thoughts, until she heard the faint creak of the dormitory door. Slowly, she sat up. Through the crack of her curtain, she saw a familiar figure gliding past. Sister Agatha. But she wasn't alone. 2 girls, their heads bowed, followed her like shadows. Jane's stomach tightened. She slipped closer to the window by her bed and peered out. The 3 figures moved quietly across the courtyard, heading toward the chapel. Sister Agatha carried a small lantern, its flame flickering, casting long, eerie shadows. Jane's breath caught. What business could they possibly have in the chapel at midnight? Her chest tightened as curiosity and fear tangled inside her. She wanted to follow, but her legs felt frozen. Instead, she whispered to herself, "Something is not right here." And for the first time, she truly feared what she might uncover. The next morning, Jane spotted the 2 girls Sister Agatha had taken into the chapel. They sat quietly at breakfast, hands folded neatly on the table, eyes fixed on their food. Normally, they were lively, laughing at jokes and whispering about little things. But now they seemed empty. Jane leaned closer to Precious and whispered, "Do you notice something strange about them?" Precious shrugged, chewing slowly, but her eyes darted toward the girls. "Maybe they're just tired," she said, though her voice carried doubt. Later in the dormitory, Jane tried to approach one of them, Amara. "Hey, are you okay? I saw you last night with Sister Agatha." Amara stiffened. Her lips trembled as if she wanted to say something, but she quickly shook her head. "I'm fine," she muttered, almost too soft to hear. Amara left hurriedly from Jane like she was being chased by a deer. The second girl, Helen, reacted the same. Her eyes darted nervously around the room, as though she feared someone might overhear. "Please, don't ask," she whispered, before turning her back to Jane. That night, Jane couldn't stop thinking about them. Their once bright eyes looked drained, almost lifeless, and their voices carried no warmth. It wasn't just sadness, it was as if something inside them had been taken away. When she told Cassie what she saw, Cassie frowned. Maybe Sister Agatha helped them. Maybe they were struggling and she gave them peace. But Jane shook her head. "That's not peace. That's fear. They're hiding something." As she lay in bed, unable to sleep, the whispers returned. This time they seemed louder, circling around her head. She sat up, clutching her blanket, her heart pounding. Down the hall, she heard slow, careful footsteps. She held her breath. The sound stopped right outside her door, lingering for a long moment, and then, softly, almost like a sigh, she heard a voice. "Belong. Join us." Jane froze, her pulse racing, as the footsteps faded into the dark. Jane could feel her heart pounding faster each time she tried to speak to the 2 girls. Their eyes looked empty, their smiles forced. Every answer they gave was short, and every word felt like it had been practiced. The more she pushed, the more they pulled away. It was like they were hiding in plain sight. It wasn't long before Sister Agatha found out what she was up to. Jane had just finished evening prayers when she was told Agatha wanted to see her. The nun's office was dark, lit only by a small lamp on the desk. Jane was scared, as she had this feeling that Sister Agatha had found out what she was doing. Agatha sat there waiting, her face calm but her eyes sharp. "I hear you have been asking questions you should not," she said softly, folding her hands. "That is dangerous, Jane. You are a clever girl, but cleverness can destroy you if you are not careful." Jane tried to keep her voice steady. "I only wanted to understand. The girls, they don't seem well." Agatha leaned forward, her smile thin. "Do not mistake silence for sickness. Some doors are meant to stay closed. If you keep pushing, child, I will have no choice but to make you stop." The words chilled Jane's blood. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't even angry. But it carried a weight heavier than anything she had ever heard. She left the office shaking, her knees weak. That night, she couldn't hold it in. She went straight to her Grace mother, Mother Rose. Jane told her everything, about the 2 girls, the secret meetings, and Agatha's warning and threat. Mother Rose listened quietly, her face unreadable. When Jane was done, she placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing by coming to me," Mother Rose said. "Leave it with me now. I will handle Sister Agatha. You must focus on your studies and prayers. Do not trouble yourself further." Her tone was calm, reassuring, even though Jane caught a flicker in her eyes, but she trusted Mother Rose to do the right thing. For the first time in weeks, Jane allowed herself to relax. Mother Rose's calm assurance had felt like a blanket wrapped around her, firm and protective. "Leave it to me," she had said, and Jane believed her. If anyone could put Sister Agatha in check, it was Mother Rose. The uneasiness that had been clinging to her chest loosened a little, and she tried to go back to her normal routine. Days passed, and nothing strange happened. No whispers in the hallway, no secret movements in the night, just the steady rhythm of convent life. Jane almost convinced herself she had overreacted, that maybe Agatha's words had only been empty threats. She even laughed again with Precious during chores, and for a moment, the school felt like home. But comfort never lasted long at St. Mary's Convent. One evening, after night prayers, Jane went back into her room and noticed that Cassie wasn't there. Precious was already in the dormitory, going through her books. "Where's Cassie?" Jane whispered. Precious shook her head. "I thought she was behind you." An hour later, no sign of her. They searched the dormitory, the study room, even the washroom, but there was no sign of her. When Jane suggested the chapel, Precious immediately grew pale. "Don't say that," she muttered, clutching her rosary tighter. Jane couldn't ignore the cold weight forming in her stomach. She remembered the two hollow-eyed girls, the late-night whispers, Sister Agatha's warning. Her relief from earlier now felt like a cruel joke. As the dormitory bell rang, signaling lights out, Jane sat on her bed but couldn't sleep. Precious tried to reassure her. Maybe Cassie had been called for extra chores. Maybe she was with one of the sisters. But even Precious's voice trembled with doubt. Jane's eyes kept drifting toward the window, looking towards the chapel. It was as if the building itself was calling her name, pulling at her curiosity and her fear. The chapel was silent that night, too silent. Jane clutched her small torchlight as she sneaked out of her room and went across the courtyard. Every whisper of wind sent shivers crawling down her skin. But something inside her refused to let her turn back. The heavy chapel doors groaned when she pushed them open. Dust floated in the beam of her light, and the tall statues of saints seemed to watch her with sad eyes. She walked down the aisle, past the pews, until her foot accidentally pressed against a loose stone near the altar. There was a click. Slowly, a section of the floor shifted open, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling downward. Jane's breath caught. She hesitated, but the pull was too strong. Carefully, she descended, the air growing damp and colder the deeper she went. Soon, faint voices reached her ears, low, rhythmic chanting that made her blood run cold. She quickly switched off her torchlight and pressed herself against the wall, praying not to be noticed. At the bottom, she peeked into a hidden chamber lit by dozens of candles. What she saw nearly made her gasp aloud. A circle of hooded women stood around a trembling girl, who knelt in the center, her face streaked with tears. The chanting grew louder, echoing against the stone walls. And then she saw them, Sister Agatha and Mother Rose, standing at the front of the circle. But they weren't dressed like nuns. Their robes were black, their eyes sharp with something dark and frightening. Sister Agatha held a strange book in one hand, while Mother Rose lifted a silver bowl filled with thick, red liquid, the woman she thought she trusted. Jane's stomach twisted. This was no prayer meeting. This was something else, something evil. The terrified girl tried to pull back, but two hooded women held her firmly. Jane bit her lip, fighting the urge to scream. She knew now, the danger wasn't just a suspicion. It was real, and it was happening right under the chapel. At that moment, Jane's heart sank. She had trusted the wrong person all along, and now she doesn't know what to do. She is caught up in something she had no idea if the outside world knew. Now, questions burned in her head. Does she make it out of this? Do all the nuns in the convent know about this? Who are the three women covered in robes? And who is the girl they are initiating into the cult? I hope this is not what I think it is. Dear viewers, what do you think about this story? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below so that we can continue the next part of the story. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and share it with friends. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks, and see you in the next video. Bye.